Hi guys, and welcome to part 71 of Skyrim Mod Sanctuary. So vacation season is over and I have a lot of catching up to do. There have been a lot of great mods since my last episode, and there are many that immediately come to mind. Falskar, for example, and if you're wondering why I have not done a video about that mod yet, it is because I've not finished it. It is enormous. There is a lot of playtime in that, but as soon as I finish it, I will devote an entire video to it. You can actually see my Let's Play of that mod online. But another mod that is making quite a large impact on our community is ENBoost. Now, ENBoost is a mod that is supposed to help your performance, increase frames per second and so on, but also improve stability so you get less crashes. Essentially what it tries to do is reduce the strain put on the memory. I recently posted a video regarding the 3.1 gigabyte limit on memory that Skyrim has that will cause you to crash if you go over it, and so of course this mod is of great interest to me. The mod author does warn against being too optimistic. Of course, as he points out, there are a lot of ways you can crash Skyrim beyond just putting too much strain on the memory. This will not fix that, and you still can overload your memory even with this mod installed. But of course, every little bit helps, and in fact, this mod delivers more than just a little bit. Before we carry on, I would just like to put a few warnings about this video. Warning number one, it is probably going to be a little technical and perhaps a little boring for people who are not interested in optimizing their game so they can mod it to the limits. Warning number two, results do seem to vary system to system. Some people are reporting massive performance boosts. Some people, including myself, are seeing no real improvements in performance, although I am seeing a massive reduction in the strain on the memory. Warning number three, I am not an expert on this mod and how it achieves what it does, so just because I'm showing you this mod, don't automatically assume I am condoning it and therefore you should use it. My opinion on this mod is no more well informed than yours, and in some cases less informed. There are some people out there who understand this far better than I, and I am keeping my eyes open on the forums for more information, and if I hear anything important, I will of course let you guys know. Okay, so we're going to find out what this mod does for us, but first of all, let's get a benchmark for what the game does without the mod. So this is the game without ENBoost. I am running Skyrim Performance Monitor. I will look down so you can see. There you go. That is a mod I have covered before, but it's one that allows you to see the resources your game is using. Very useful for testing things out. Remember, the limit is 3.1 gigabytes on RAM, and the top line RAM 2.254 gigabytes. So I've got some distance left. I'm not in major danger, but it's already using quite a lot of RAM. I'm playing at Ultra, and I have SMIM, the Skyrim Mesh Improvement mod, and Skyrim 2K HD installed. I've got a few others, a Medium Born and so on, but it's not actually that heavily modded with regards to things like texture mods. There are a lot more texture mods out there, so I could probably put a lot more stress on my system if I wanted. But there you go, 2.25. Now I'm going to go into Jorvaska because Jorvaska is an area that does seem to have slightly higher RAM usage. It gives us an even better idea. There you can see it jumped straight away. Ignore Vilkas, he's having a bad hair day. 2.6. It varies between about 2.6 and 2.8 when I enter here, which is a little close to the limit. Now I don't have to worry about VRAM. I've got 4 gigabytes of VRAM on my graphics card, but it's the 3.1 gigabyte limit that we are interested in. And once I exit Jorvaska again, as you can see, I'm still using 2.6. The memory is still being used. So now I am I wouldn't say I was in dangerous territory, but I don't have a lot of wiggle room left. Half a gigabyte. And here we are with ENBoost installed, and you can immediately see the RAM is 663 megabytes, 0.7 gigabytes. That is a fairly massive reduction. That is a reduction from 2.25 to 0.7. And in Jorvasker, $740. So there is a hell of a lot less strain on the RAM, on the memory my system has. However, there is a tiny increase in VRAM. Now, I've got 4 gigabytes of the stuff, and as far as I know, there is no limit to the amount of graphical memory, the VRAM, that can be used. So if you have a card with 4 gigabytes, it can use it without any problems. So currently, it does look like my system has got a lot more room to maneuver. I can now install a lot more mods and without worrying about crashing. Now, of course, as I mentioned, I am not an expert on this sort of thing, on how the game uses memory. And of course, the tool I'm using could be reporting the numbers incorrectly. However, I did also use a tool called VMMap, and I'm certainly not an expert on that, but it seemed to back this data up. When I look at the top of the steps in Whiterun, at this point, this is what VMMap shows without ENBoost. As you can see, quite a lot of memory. The working set is what we're focusing on, I believe. And now look at it, the same place with ENBoost. As you can see, the working set is a lot smaller. It does seem to match the RAM reported by Skyrim Performance Monitor. However, again, not an expert on this, but for me, it is encouraging that both of these tools came up with similar numbers. And then, of course, there is the question of performance. Did I see a performance boost? The answer is no. When I first installed the mod, I actually got a slight drop and a slight stutter. I went onto the site and quickly found a few settings I could tweaked a little, and managed to to completely remove the stutter, and I got my performance back. So, with my current setup, I have identical performance with or without the mod. But of course, there are people reporting 5 to 10 frames per second boost, which is a fairly significant amount. So this is something I'm afraid you are going to have to try on your system. And if you don't see a performance boost, don't give up immediately. Try looking at some of the information on the page itself, tweak the settings a little bit and see what you can get. It is possible that you might get that extra little bit of performance. Now, for me, even though I'm not getting any more performance and I didn't have stability issues, I think this is something I'm going to continue to use because, of course, I did come dangerously close to that limit. Whereas now, I'm so far under it, I don't need to think about it. I can now install quite a lot of mods and hopefully should stay relatively stable. I'm not going to guarantee that, and of course this is something that's getting discussed back and forth on various forums, including the STEP forum, and I am going to keep my eyes open for further information, but at the moment I've got a fairly positive feeling for this mod. Of course, there is a disadvantage, and the disadvantage is this mod does prevent some programs from running. For example, DxTorry does not work if you are using this mod. In fact, DxTorry does not work with any ENB mod, as far as I am aware. So if you use DxTorry to record, I am afraid that is not going to be an option. This mod will not be an option for you, or you will have to find an alternative. Fraps does work, and I believe Bandicam does as well. I have not been able to confirm that yet, even though I use that. I use it on a different machine. Bandicam is actually a very good alternative. It's not as powerful as DxTorry, but it's a lot better than Fraps. So anyway, that is the downside, and as far as I'm aware, there's no way around that. I am going to show you how to install this mod in this video. This video is already reasonably tech heavy anyway, and it seems appropriate. The first thing I need you to do is go along to the CTD and memory patch ENBoost page on Nexus and read the description page thoroughly. Check to see if anything has changed since I made this video. The mod author seems fairly busy on it at the moment. He is updating it quite regularly and things may have changed. It is always best to check all the details and make sure you understand what you are doing. The first requirement is to download whichever version of the ENB series is suggested here on this page. At the moment it is 0.199 and I'm going to download this to my desktop for now. Now yes, this means you are in fact installing the ENB mod, and as we know, ENB is a visual enhancement mod. Don't worry if you don't want the visual enhancements. That is what the CTD and memory patch ENBoost page supplies. It supplies a preset that switches off all of the visual enhancements and leaves the memory improvements, the performance improvements intact. Obviously, we're going to need the file from that page. The latest version as of making this video is 2.3, so I'm going to download that manually to my desktop as well. Now, don't worry too much if you're using an ENB. I will talk about that briefly a little later on. So, once those two files have downloaded, I'm going to extract them both out right here. I'm going to use WinRAR, but you can use 7-zip if you like. I'm going to extract that to there and ENBoost 2.3 here as well. And then I can delete these archives. Don't need them anymore. You're also going to need your Skyrim game folder open. It's wherever you've installed Steam, Steam Apps, Common, Skyrim. You'll know if you're in the right place. You'll find a file called tsv.exe. Don't worry if the .exe is missing. That just means your operating system is hiding known extensions. It'll just be showing tsv with this icon. You're in the right place if you are there. Then what you're going to need are the ENB series files. Now, there's two versions, Injector and Wrapper. I'm not going to cover the Injector version here. If you need the Injector version, it probably means you're running some of the mod with D3D9.dll, and you probably know how to use the Injector version anyway. If not, I have covered it in some of my ENB series videos. Check out the first episode, ENB1 for sharpshooters. I do go into how to install Injector versions there. But for now, we're going to go to the Wrapper version. And the actual instructions tell you to copy everything. In actual fact, I never take the text files. I don't really see the need. The parallax text just has a lot of information in there, as does the README. You should probably read the README, but you don't necessarily need it in your game folder. So I'm going to select all of those and copy. And you copy them straight into the Skyrim game folder. There you go. We've now got the ENB installed. Now to switch off the visuals, we go along to ENBoost. And depending on which card you've got, if you've got AMD, click there, Intel here. NVIDIA is what I've got, so I'm going here. You also need to know how much memory your video card has. 128 to 768 megabytes of VRAM, you want to use this folder. To be honest, that's quite low for a gaming rig. I think most of you are going to have 1 to 6 gigabytes. Go in there, copy the ENB local ini, and paste it where you just pasted all those other files. You should get a message to copy and replace. Click copy and replace. And you now actually have ENBoost installed. However, what I would recommend you do now is open the ENB local ini that you just copied across, and I'm going to edit with Notepad++. If you don't have that installed, you can use the normal Notepad. I would recommend Notepad++, by the way. It is a much better option. This is the file where you are going to do a little bit of tweaking and playing around. And what I had to do is not necessarily going to be what you had to do, or what you have to do, my apologies. For me, I like VSync. With this mod installed, it seemed to turn VSync off, so I needed to change this to true. That would allow VSync. I would recommend using VSync or using the FPS limiter. So if you don't want VSync for some reason, you want to leave that as false, I would recommend you set the FPS limit to true and put your FPS limit to 60. There are a couple of reasons for this. The first reason is Skyrim does not like to go over 60 frames a second. Every time you go over 60 frames a second, you are much more likely to get physics glitches, strange, odd occurrences, flying cows, and so on. If you've got a 120Hz monitor and you've been V-syncing to 120 frames a second, and you've noticed lots of strange things like that, you might have just found the cause. The second reason for capping the frame rates is that with this mod, you may have problems in loading screens. If you don't, you might crash, or there have been reports of like infinite loading screens. It just stays there. So it is important that you do this. Limit the FPS to 60, either by changing your monitor to 60 and enabling VSync, or set this to 60 and set that to true. Of course, I like VSync, so I'm going to use that. Now, there are a few other settings you can play with. The ones that kept coming up were the Expand System Memory x64, the Reduce System Memory Usage, and the Disable Driver Memory Manager. And I found no benefit changing any of these three, not really. So I'm going to leave them as they are. But again, if you're having performance problems or stutters, you could change one of these. Just change one and see what happens. And if it didn't work, change it back. The one that actually worked for me was this one, Force Borderless Full Screen. When I changed that to false, it cleared up my stutter and put my performance back to where it was. But that was it for me. Those were the tweaks I did to get it working. Again, they may not work for you. You may have to mess around with some of these values. Change one thing at a time and then test it out. Don't change lots of things. So what do you do if you're already using an ENB? Can you upgrade and use the latest ENB binaries and get the performance and stability boosts? The answer is maybe. Check the page of the ENB preset you are using. So for example, Real Vision ENB actually has a new version out specifically for the 0.199 ENB binaries. So you can install that and then install the latest version of Real Vision as well. Follow the mod author's instructions. Here's the thing. You don't need the CTD and memory patch files if you are using an ENB mod. You need to check that mod's page and find out if that mod author has updated it. And if they've not, check the comment section. Maybe some people have got some advice on how to change to the 0.199 binaries and tweak the INI to match that ENB preset. But please be aware, whether you're using the ENBoost or you're using a normal ENB preset with the latest binaries, this is a work in progress and it will require a little bit of tweaking from you to get it working for your setup. If you are a little bit nervous of this type of mod and you are not pushing your memory to its limit at the moment, you might want to wait a while and see what happens. If, however, you are a little bit comfortable experimenting, I encourage you to try this out, see what it does, and give feedback. What we need here is information. What we want to know is this going to fix the memory problem? It probably will not fix it all by itself. In fact, I can almost guarantee it will not. The mod author has suggested that himself. This is not going to replace being sensible about which mods you install. You should still not run out and install every texture pack at the highest resolution. Only use 2K and 4K textures if you can see the difference. If you're using 1080p resolution and the 1K textures look not that different to the 2K textures, think about using those. It's a lot more sensible. Think about optimizing your textures. I am going to do some videos on this, but think about optimizing textures and so on. There are a lot of things you can do to avoid this crash, the crash problem with 3.1 gigabyte memory limit. This is just one option that may help. Again, we have got to see with time how things pan out. Okay guys, well that is about it for the video, and I do apologize for its somewhat long-winded and technical nature. I just felt this was a mod I really did want to bring to the community's attention and show people how they could try it out. With the vacation time over, I'm hoping to get back on track with this series and bring you a lot of great new mods. As I mentioned, I am working on some videos showing you how to optimize textures for Skyrim, and I'm also working on another series aimed at complete beginners, people who've never modded their game before, so that's not really for you guys. That's going to be for people who've bought the game recently and want to get into modding. So a lot of videos planned, let's just hope I get time to actually make them all. Of course, I am going to end this video with some screenshots that you guys have been posting on my Nexus page. Big thank you for that. If you keep posting them, I will keep using them. So, I will see you guys on whatever video you decide to join me on, and until then, as always, have fun.